Toss a coin to your Witcher, dear viewers. Robert Gibson, XJ, and I welcome you to our podcast, Roll of Attention. And in today's episode, we shall discuss the first short story in the Witcher universe titled The Witcher. Excuse the repetition, but it is what it is. Written by Andrzej Sapkowski, the tale first appeared in the Polish magazine Fantastyka in December 1986. It is widely available in the book called The Last Wish. If you wanted to read the tale or are afraid of spoilers, you should stop now and read it and then come back to us. Otherwise, if you need a refresher, here's the summary. Our story begins in the most glorious place one could fathom within a fantasy world, a tavern. In the city of Vizima, great unrest brews. An outsider comes to the city with many tricks up his sleeve. Geralt of Rivia, master swordsman, monster hunter, adventurer, witcher, if you'd like it all in one word. He receives a relatively warm welcome from the locals, who see him as a vagabond from a dastardly land of vigilance. Quick on the draw, Geralt dispatches the assailants and is taken captive by the city guard. Later, Velerad, a castellan of King Foltest, seeks out Geralt to suss out the Witcher's intent. Why is he here? It is then that we learn of Geralt's business. He wishes to answer the king's call and deal with the monster plaguing Vizima, a striga the monarch himself created. Conceived by Foltest's incest with his sister Ada, the striga has been terrorizing the city and its citizens. The king hopes to revive his daughter and lift this curse, but most of the noblemen in the court believe this is to be a worthless effort. Something done cannot be undone. Throughout the middle of the tale, Geralt speaks to various characters within the castle, getting more and more information on the being. We see a Witcher work his trade, manipulating men and gathering intel with great ease. His final confrontation is with King Foltest himself, who knows of the noblemen's ploy as they have tried to bribe Geralt, and he himself desires to measure our hero's moral compass. Ultimately, he gives our monster slayer the go-ahead, and the hunt begins. As Geralt enters the decrepit castle and makes his preparations, Lord Ostred, one of the men who tried to convince him that this was a foolish endeavor, makes his final plea. He explains that the king has become rotten and must be replaced, so the Witcher must abandon this effort that he is on for the sake of the realm. In a Conan-esque style, Geralt knocks out the disloyal Ostred and uses him as bait for the Striga. Does Geralt despise traitors, or was Ostred just at the wrong place and time? We don't get to find out, as he dies quite quickly. Sapkowski masterfully describes the witch's fight with the Striga, highlighting that Geralt is doing his best to avoid hurting the cursed girl. In addition, the author aims to further show us the inner morality of the Witcher, who does not harm those who do not have true ill intent. In the end, Geralt is victorious, and although the young princess will require a lot of care to recover, she shall no longer stalk the knight, as long as the witch's careful instructions are followed. So ends the tale called The Witcher, about the Witcher. um, I'm gonna open it to the floor and see what everybody thinks. I think I'm gonna go last when it comes to my thoughts. But let's start with Robert. Robert, is this the first Slavic myth inspired tale that you've read? So not Slavic myths as a whole, but something Slavic inspired in fantasy.
Possibly not quite the first, in that a lot of Paul Anderson's The Merman's Children has some Slavic legends woven into it, but this is the first complete story of that sort that I've read. And I must say, I was impressed by it. I didn't quite understand the last few paragraphs, and I've forgotten why I didn't understand them. I just have this lurking sense of confusion in my head. But 99% of it I thought was really good.
Hmm. Well, I'd love to talk to you about what you were confused about, but if you yourself cannot remember, perhaps attempt to try and do so
Yeah.
throughout the podcast, and if you can, then we could discuss it. Um, yeah. So as I was trying to sort of insinuate here. Perhaps you have read tales that have an undertone or have borrowed from the Slavic mythology. This one, however, is completely and utterly soaked in it, right? It tries its best to portray um,
Mm,
Slavic mythology in every
mm.
way that it can. It is akin
Mm.
to Conan's universe, right? It is a completely different realm from ours.
Though
Um,
oddly enough, striga is the Italian for witch, so there's some crossover
there you
there.
go.
But anyway,
Many cultures and many languages borrow from one another. It is a wonder,
mm,
I know. Yeah. So, what do you feel? What do you think about Geralt of Rivia as a character?
yeah, yeah, I like him. He doesn't get up my nose at all. I don't feel like puking when I read about him, which is quite good going in as far as modern literature is concerned. So yeah, I give it the thumbs up.
Would you say that 1986 is modern literature already?
I must admit I missed that date reference. I'm surprised it's that long ago. Actually, I don't know why I'm surprised, but
I mean, it is a translation, remember, and a translation that was
right,
done somewhere in 2002, 2001, if I'm not mistaken. So, although it was written in 1986, it was written in Polish, right?
right.
So it has been translated with modern sensibilities, and that's why you felt the
Mm.
story itself was modern.
I think the interaction between uh, Geralt and the king was particularly well done, because the king comes to believe in the end that it's no good um, enforcing too strict a set of conditions on the guy who's working for him. He has to trust him to some extent, and that's very well done.
Yeah, it's like he is resigned by the situation. But I get the impression he's also resigned because Foltest has had so many other people try and fail, right? So
Mm,
at this point, he is, seasoned at listening to people, and finally he is believing, yes, I should trust a master. I should
mm,
not intervene.
mm,
Um, but I mean, that is, based on an assumption and not what's actually in the tale.
yeah.
So overall, you like the story in that case, would you say?
Yes, I do. I was pleasantly surprised.
All right. XJ, how do you feel about the tale?
Um, I think I wanted to start off by how I actually got introduced to The Witcher,
Mm.
which is through the games. And I think a lot of people in the West was either introduced to The Witcher through the games or the Henry Cavill uh, miniseries. Uh,
On
my
Netflix, right?
I don't follow television, so I don't really know. Never watched it, to
Okay.
be honest. But I remember playing the very first game, and I'm talking about the, the really clunky, broken version on release. It took CD Projekt Red a while to patch the thing, to make it playable actually, and it was some years before I returned to the game after first touching it. And I was immediately entranced. And it's really because the flavor of the folklore is so different from everything else. I think like the so I don't know if there was any let me think. How did the sequence of events go? So I'm not going to talk about what I found great about the game. I'm just going to talk about the mythology behind some of the creatures that the Witcher came across in his business of monster slaying. And I don't know where the striga actually sits in Slavic mythology, but actually the one that really brought home to me, like, this is a very different sort of fairy tale story, are the noon raves and the night raves. And I was like, wow, this is so different. This is like, we're talking about raves that became raves that used to be brides that were brutally murdered either in the morning or at the night, depending, and the rituals to disperse or otherwise lay to rest the raves themselves were again very different from West Europe, I think. Like all the stuff that we have been exposed to, the very Tolkien-esque fantasy that is more widespread. And from that moment on, I was completely hooked to The Witcher. The Witcher 2 turned out to be a bit of a disappointment, but The Witcher 3 was like really good.
You never played Witcher 1, huh?
I played Witcher 1, I told you, the very first one. That was where I got...
the very first one.
The very first one. In fact, I got the one where it was completely broken on release.
Oh, I see. I thought you were talking about Witcher 3 because it was also completely broken on release. I kind of forgot that Witcher 1 was also... You know what? Yeah, I should... You know what? CD Projekt Red, as much as I like your games, every game you release is broken on release.
I'm okay. I'm thoroughly okay with that because they're following in well-trodden footsteps laid by Bethesda. Anyway,
I think we should jump off this because Robert is just like, what are they talking about? The nuclear science.
Anyway, getting back to The Witcher, I was very excited to pick up the story when I finally had the chance, and when I read, and The Witcher is pretty much the very first. I got The Last Wish on my Kindle, and The Witcher was the very first story that I read, and I was bitterly disappointed because it nearly started in a tavern. No.
It did start in the tavern.
Nearly. Okay, it first started on a road.
Or whatever. They said they later said he came from a road. It probably started.
Okay, well, it's just a running gag on the show, but I gotta say, truthfully, I didn't quite enjoy the book as much as I enjoyed the games, but I don't know if that's because of the translation or if the story was originally like that. And part of the reason why I didn't like The Witcher as much, the story as much as the games, is because I found some of the sequence of events to be very odd. They don't quite follow one another, and the very first sequence of event that threw me off was right in the beginning of The Witcher. Geralt of Rivia enters a tavern, deliberately chose a much more rundown tavern, tried to get a beer, starts a fight, wants to spend the night there, starts a fight, kills some people, then got brought to the castellan of, I think, Wyzim. Is that the name of the town?
Vizima. Vizima.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure the town that the inn was in is not Vizima. Vizima is the capital, if I'm not wrong.
You may be right, but I don't think so.
Wyzim. It is Wyzim. The town is Wyzim.
There you go. I've been told, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Anyway, so
Yeah, finally.
yeah,
So-
finally, man. Anyway, I thought that was a very strange sequence of event. I mean, I knew immediately what Geralt was up to. He was just trying to get attention to himself, which was later borne out in his conversation with the castellan of Wyzim. But I thought, it feels as if there's just like, it feels like the whole sequence is written to, I can't quite put a finger to it, but it feels really odd. It's like Geralt wanted to find a place to spend the night.
Mm-hmm.
That came across as being true as well in the way it's written. But then he went deliberately to look for the most hostile inn ever. And then he picks a fight. At first he doesn't seem like he wants to fight. Then he kills some people. And then he just marches himself off to meet the castellan. And I'm thinking to myself, like,
No, he's taken captive.
Did he though? Because he casted
Yeah.
the sign to.
He's arrested by the city guard. They talk about it.
Well, I mean, he did cast a spell to enchant them. I can't remember which sign it was. It's Quen, Yerden, Igni, Art, and the other one.
I mean, it is also pointed out by Foltest that he suspects that this was all a charade to get to the castle.
Yeah, pretty
to get to
much.
the dungeon.
Pretty much. But I felt like the sequence of it was
Control.
it was retconned to doing that. It felt like that. Like like I said, it's very hard for me to put a finger to it, and that's why I'm not sure if the way I'm reading it is because of the translation or if it's a lot more clear in the original story. But this style of writing where it just suddenly kind of jumps from one point to the other is quite prevalent in all the other short stories I've read in The Last Wish as well. So that's why I was wondering, like, what was up. But I'll tell you one thing. My favorite character in the whole short story is Velerad. Or is it Velerad?
Oh, you mean the castle?
Yeah. It's like, he's one hell of a character, right? He's like, okay, you troublemaker, you can sit but over there, please, not too close. And then once he starts rolling, come here, sit down, we'll have a beer. And the way he
typical Slavic, conversation.
Yeah, like,
Oh, what the fuck are you doing here? Fuck off! All right,
just come here, we'll have a drink. What do I care?
It's so typical. You have no idea. Oh man.
I'm like,
All right,
my
so-
god.
I
love this
agree.
guy.
I agree with your, although I try to contest it and debate it for the sake of, parallel to your argument. I do agree with your critique of the beginning. I don't share the same notion that all of his short stories suffer from that. I will say that this was the very first Witcher tale that was ever written. It's called The Witcher for it, right? Like, he didn't have like a plan at that time to write an entire book of short stories based on this character. So it is, in places, it is very strange because, let's put it this way, his Conan-esque way that he deals with Ostrid, it does not fit the rest of Geralt as he's painted in the tale.
That's
Right?
actually a really good point. I was going to bring up Ostrid as well. Yeah.
Yeah, there are jarring, and I think it is because of the fact that this is a first tale, and Sapkowski is doing his best as a writer to showcase his prowess, but failing in some instances. It happens to all of us. I think this was The Witcher was submitted to Fantastica as one of the contestants for some sort of um, contest of sorts, and it came third. So it wasn't even the first. It wasn't even the winner. It was still published because like the first five or the first three that were on the total poll um, were going to be published. But that tells you a lot actually. That it wasn't even the best out of the tales that were submitted. It's still good. It is by no means terrible, but hearing what XJ says, you can kind of get the picture of the little troubles that plague this tale. Was there anything else you wanted to say, XJ? Any other musings?
I think I just want to agree with you. I know, very strange, right?
All right, who are you, and where's the real XJ?
I want to agree with you that the way Ostrich was dealt with is very contrary to how Geralt became as a universe was fleshed out. Because the thing about Geralt is you get the sense that he is a man trying to do his best in a very hard world, and so tying somebody up as bait is not really Geralt's
Repertoire.
character. Not in character. It's not really in character, but it could just be that Andrzej Sapkowski was still flashing out the Geralt as a character in his mind. So, but
it's like when Conan slays that chappie that Nikki pointed out in the last story, Rogues in the House. It's just a bit out of
Indeed.
character.
Indeed, I was gonna bring this up that this sort of like failure of characterization plagues a lot of our authors, and it continues to plague them in the modern world. Although in the modern world, it's much easier to find such things because you literally have a document on a computer. You can Control F, some stuff.
I mean, even then, sometimes like the authors kind of forget who the characters they're writing are, especially over a long time. And I want to say we feel that, right?
Are you looking at me?
No, we feel that, right, Nikki? Because
we feel that. Yeah.
There are times when I like the characters that I made change so much during the writing that when I reread the beginning, I'm like, who's this guy?
Yeah, man. Yeah. XJ and I were writing a book together, dear viewers, and within it, I'm not gonna spoil the plot. You better buy it. Yeah. The point is, there are two brothers in it, Darius and Aleus, and the two of them, they have outgrown what we had for them, on the basis of like our setup, right? Our setup was one way, and they kind of blossomed into different things, both of them. So sometimes it's hard to remember.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Although, frankly speaking, there are some side characters that grew even more than the main characters.
That's true. All right. Yeah.
But anyway,
let's go. Yeah.
Anyway,
sorry. Go on.
I just wanted to highlight again how brilliant the conversation between Velerad and Geralt really is. It's really good because so first of all, Velerad has this very understated way of saying certain things, like the way he describes the striga and the people that became her dinner. it's like how do you couch such horrible things in such bland terms is the only way I can use to describe it.
You see, when you see horrible things every single day, you begin to make such changes to your language.
I mean, quite possibly.
Mm,
Yeah.
I speak
mm,
from experience.
Oh.
mm,
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
I just want to say again, like the conversation, I think the dialogues in the whole story is to me is probably the biggest selling point. Not well, selling point is not quite the right thing, but the highest point.
yeah, yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah.
The dialogue, not
Mm,
just between Geralt and Velerad, but also between Foltest and Geralt. And I
mm,
think so you said earlier why Foltest has had eventually came to the conclusion that probably the professionals should be left to do their job. I think is actually touched on in the story. Foltest said to Geralt, well, I think the reason why I allow you to kill my daughter is because I think she's in pain, which paints a very different picture of Foltest altogether from what you hear of him in the beginning. And I think the other high point of the Witcher universe is that almost every character is like that. They're not they all have some parts about them that's really, you think about it, is like really disgusting. But then you come to another part of them that is a little bit more you could say, I wouldn't say humane, but
mm,
parts about them that paints a completely different picture when you see it from that side.
mm.
And I think
So,
like the games also did that very well, carried
Mm.
that tradition very well.
yeah, yeah, redeemable people.
I would
Yeah.
have I would have
Mm,
call I wouldn't call them redeemable, let's put it that way. But they're not cardboard characters.
mm,
Yeah.
mm,
Indeed. There is. I will bring up one character from the games, and I'll explain his backstory for Robert's sake, so he gets it completely. But spoilers for like the first part of Witcher 3. In a minute. I haven't said what I think about the Witcher. Um,
Are we talking about the Red Baron?
oh yes, I will get to him.
All right.
So um, the Witcher. It fills me with different feelings, mixed feelings. For one, I am very happy to see something like this on the market because it showcases something to the wider world that it simply doesn't have access to. There are not a lot of Slavic inspired fantasy worlds, although that may change in the future. There is this certain pride in me, even though I did not write this story. Um, we seldom see something from our part of the world become so popular. The Witcher is one of those things. Metro 2033, and another Slavic, you know, written work by Dmitry Gluchovsky, I think. It is a very recent novella that has been that has become popular in in the Western world, and it became popular again through a game. Actually, at the same time, you have to take off the rose tinted glasses and analyze something with the naked eye once or twice, and that's why I agree with most of the things that XJ said, and I'll also add that in this first story, you clearly see Sapkowski struggle with not just the identity of the Witcher himself, but also the identity of the world. He has a very hard grasp on the individual characters, and that's why, in my opinion, XJ and Robert love the conversations between them so much. And I also think that that is the strongest part of the tale. Characterization of individuals between each other is something that Sapkowski does fantastically. Those conversations are clear indication of that. But the story stumbles with the idea of exactly how any of this is going on. So from one part, right, you've got this witcher who goes into a tavern, which is clearly dangerous, and he fights a bunch of racists, I guess, because they don't like people who come from Rivia. But then, for some reason, nobility treats him differently. And I mean, of course, if you refer to the later stories, you slowly understand that, like, okay, witches and um, those such people, they are made to be feared to the common folk because it's easier for those who govern them, and so on and so forth. But here, not enough is spent on that in the tale, and it can be because that wasn't the plan at that moment. Because the reason the people are, in dislike of Geralt is not because that he's a witcher, but because he's from Rivia. Or it could be that perhaps Sapkowski didn't have it in mind that has to be explained um, so vividly. So, and examples like that are, these little sand pieces in the story, in the tale, little specks that kind of detract from the quality. Still, it's better than the first story I ever submitted to a magazine, right? So it is not to say that it is lacking in quality, just that those things do pop out, and you have to talk about them. I do think that we should do one more tale, or maybe more than one tale, um, written by Sapkowski, and see if that changes. One thing that will not change, however, is the way he portrays his characters, and he does so really well. What did you want to say, Robert?
Well, I wanted to say that I think what XJ partly was saying a bit earlier was that there was something perhaps contrived about the first part of the plot.
Contrived. Great word. Yes. Yes.
Um, but that sort of thing rarely bothers me because I kind of think that, like in a murder mystery, the victim often has victim written all over him, metaphorically speaking, and he just sort of stumbles through chapter one in a kind of dazed way, waiting to be murdered, And the reason that happens is because the book is determined that he's going to get murdered, So that's partly what happens sometimes in a story like the one we're talking about. Excuse me, that some things have got to happen to keep the story going. So that's jolly well what does happen. Now, I'm not sufficiently analytic to look into closely. As long as the characters are good and the atmosphere is good and the setting is good, I'm happy.
I mean, for me, it mostly boils down to whether it's possible for me to suspend my disbelief, so to speak. And I mean, I'm a huge science fiction nerd, but I rarely watch science fiction movies, and a lot of it just boils down to the science that these science fiction movies hang their coats on are all junk science, and I can't suspend the disbelief. And I'm going to bring up Pacific Rim as an example. When I was watching the very first one, I was thinking to myself the whole time so like there's a scene where the robots fought the kaijus in the middle of the ocean, and then they were lifted off the helipad, lifted off by helicopters, and then dropped into the ocean. That whole time I'm thinking to myself, you drop a two-legged robot like that into the ocean, the surface tension on the water is going to shatter the legs. That's not believable. And so that's like the kind of mind set I have when I watch or read things. But once I start getting into that zone, it's not really possible for me to enjoy the story anymore.
I guess it's a matter of degree. My tolerance the limit of tolerance was reached with the movie The Day After Tomorrow, when the climate change sort of happened in kind of about 5 minutes. So,
That's a black and white movie, am I right? It's very old.
no, it's Day After. Well, there may have been another
Oh
one
wait,
called
wait. I remember now. I remember well. I remember now. Okay, yeah. That was in 2020 something, I guess. Well, whatever. Yeah.
Man, that movie sucks. I remember that movie sucking a lot.
On that, we
Day
are
After
all
Tomorrow.
agreed. It seems.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I promised something, and I shall fulfill it. There's an individual, right? And you're gonna tell us in the end, is he redeemable or not, Robert? You get to decide, right? You are the ultimate judge. You are Osiris in this situation. So there's a man called Philip Stranger, or the Bloody Baron, as he will later be known, and he is a war hero. You know, he fought in battles for his country, Temeria, and you know, for that he was granted great many things, including his baronship. However, once he became the baron, and had the restlessness set in with the time of war, he began to drink. Oh, and he did drink deeply, and with lust, to the point where those who tried to stop him, those loved ones, uh, came under fire, especially his wife, who he dastardly and horribly beat many times. It wasn't just a one-time affair. He did it more than once. And although he was apologetic, or tried to somehow smooth things out by bringing gifts, or making things up, well, he would do it again. And sometimes when he wasn't even drunk, he got into the habit so much. And once he did it, I mean, in a way which caused a stillbirth in his wife. And from then on, he began being haunted by this ghost of the stillborn. And this is where the Geralt of Rivia enters our tale, because he is in the barony for a different reason entirely. He is looking for someone very near and dear to his heart. And when he arrives, he meets with the Bloody Baron, as apparently the person that he's looking for stayed at his manor for a night or two. And, well, the Bloody Baron does tell him a thing or that about his past, but not fully. He doesn't tell him about the terrible things he has done, but still asks for help. And because he doesn't come forth openly, Geralt suffers, greatly in his way. And finally, being able to confront the Bloody Baron, he confesses. And Geralt, this is the beauty of the game, by the way. You can basically tell him, "All right, now that you told me the truth, go away. I'm not gonna help you. You can die and rot." Or you can, botch his life further, and so on and so forth. But I mean, I don't think that's what Geralt would do. The choice that I made was to help out this guy, to guide him through a ritual to put this stillborn creature to rest, and to create a spirit that would protect his family instead. Um, and he in that moment, when he is confronted by the most horrible aspect of his drunkenness, he dastardly decides to try and become better. Now we don't know whether he becomes better or not, because we leave the character at that point, and we don't know his true fate. Does he become better or not? But that is his tale. Is he redeemable?
Well, from what you're saying, it would seem so. It would seem so. Yeah, it would seem so. Quite surprising. I tend to I think perhaps in the hero's place, I might have given him short shrift, just lopped his head off or something. But I suppose I should learn to be more forgiving. I don't know.
I'm completely on your side, to be honest. I would also not tolerate his existence, but I don't think that's what would Geralt do. I think Geralt
No,
is somewhat soft-hearted in these.
I think
Well,
wife beating is beyond the pale, really.
Yeah.
well, let's just say the universe of The Witcher is not as forgiving because we do know what happened to the Baron, and nothing good came to him in the end. But I'm not gonna spoil.
Spoilers.
I'm not gonna spoil it. But yes, he's got things coming to him. Let's put it that way.
I tried to be like, we don't know. No. You gotta
well,
spoil it. I wanted Robert to decide upon himself. Can this man be?
There's plenty of non-alcoholic drinks which are quite pleasant. There's no need to.
Good one.
So the reason why the Baron started taking to drink was because he is away from his wife for so long. Like, he just kept getting called out to the front lines, and the guy is really lonely out there. And it's a pretty tough existence out in the front lines. And of course, we mustn't forget that his wife cheated on him.
That's true. I forgot about that.
His wife cheated on him. So because he is away all the time, like literally, he comes back, pecks his wife on the cheeks, and then goes right back to the front lines. And I'm not defending the man, because this is the beauty of The Witcher, right? You see a character like the Bloody Baron, and then you sit there and then you go like, okay, I can see why he gets into certain things. And you don't have to form a judgment on the guy, but you can see how it's like you throw an apple into the sky, it's gonna fall down. You put a man in a certain situation, some outcomes will become that way. And you don't have to judge them. You don't have to feel sorry for him. You don't have to feel compassion for the guy. You can just look at the situation and you say, okay, it makes sense that this flowed from that. Yeah. And when you look at the wife as well, like, well, she did cheat on her husband, but then the husband is away all the time.
Yeah. Not a proper marriage.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very human. I won't go as far as to say whether one side deserves justice or not, or I'm not gonna make a judgment on any of that. But it is a very human story, and I would say it is very in keeping with the Witcher universe, because it's not a nice place, and good people do the best they can, and almost always fails in some way or the other, just like Geralt.
I will take a stand here. Actually, I will say that as soon as another party starts physical violence, there's no way of getting.
I mean, again, I'm not defending Philip Stranger, but let's get some perspective here.
Oh god.
The Witcher Geralt started a fight, killed 3 people in a tavern just so he can get to Foltest. You tell me.
Yeah, but what's it called? He killed people who deserved it, so it's okay.
It's like, okay, so as long as they deserve it, it's okay to kill them, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what the what's it called, death penalty is for.
I mean, like we're talking about Geralt of We're talking about Geralt of Rivia, who is also called the Butcher of Blaviken. Yeah, so it's like, come on, man. Like, let's
he's handsome though.
So that's what it comes down to.
No, I'm joking. Look,
but,
this is the point, right? So there's a beautiful word in the there's a beautiful sentence in the English language, excuse the, like the only way to say it is with swear words, so my apologies. Fuck around, find out. And that's what happened in the tavern. They fucked around, they found out what it
But
means to,
but
insult
no no
Geralt
no
of
no no
Rivia.
no 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 no. I'm not. I can't let that go off the hook because Geralt went in looking for trouble. He is instigating.
That's true.
He is instigating.
Hey.
So that's a different thing.
I don't know, man. I mean, he didn't come in and say like, "All right, who wants to fight me?" It was their choice to come over towards him.
Look, I'm not passing judgment on any of the characters. I just think they're very beautifully written with a very. They're all very human. They are not cardboard characters. Is what I'm trying to say. And the beauty of the Witcher universe, not the one by the game, because the game actually painted a much more beautiful version of the Witcher universe, but the actual the thing that's actually presented in the books is that it's very hard to judge.
A lot of it, I mean, a lot of the moral compass, at least to me, it feels like in the Witcher series, the way Sapkowski writes it is that there's a difference between, physical violence against a stranger and physical violence against somebody who is closer to you. He puts a certain accent towards how that's worse. I'm not saying that it is what he himself believes or something like that, but you see it a lot because a lot of the curses that sort of like happen and transpire, it's all about personal, things between people, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, to me, again, the beauty of the world that Andrzej Sapkowski had created is that it is very difficult to come in with a judgmental mindset because you will find horrible flaws in all the characters.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the actual story for a second. So
Why?
Because that's what the podcast is
Ostensibly
called.
is about.
Ostensibly is about. That's true. So one of the other characters that really interests me is Ostred. So not his fate, obviously. I think his fate is rather stupid, but we already went over that part. It's about his desires. So if we break it down, what he wants to do is he wants this terror to continue, right? And this terror continuing to bring out a change that he thinks is positive. Now, again, this is a much more complex or complexly explained situation for a bad guy. And he's just there for a bit, right? And I really like that. I really like that even his point of view is somewhat explored, and it has some nuance in it, right? He wants a different king on the throne, and the best way to do that is to continue making a fool out of Foltest.
The reason why he wanted the king gone, though, I gotta say, I don't really buy it.
You mean to put a new monarch on the throne? Or what do you mean?
The reason why he wants to remove Foltest is not because he wants a new king. I mean, he wants to have a new king, but the real reason is because he detested Foltest for sleeping with his sister because he himself isn't.
I forgot about that fact.
He himself is besotted with the sister. And
he liked this. Adam. That's right.
And I'm thinking to myself like, okay, fair enough. You like the sister, but is there ever any chance that you could have the sister?
That's not what it's about, actually. Like, unrequited love is basically like half of all the novels you've ever read.
Sure, fair enough. But my point is that so Ada is the sister's king. She's never going to be in any remote possibility of being married to, I don't know what the rank of Ostred is, but she's back in those days, even if if Foltest hadn't had designs on Edda, then the most likely fate for Edda was to be married off to another royal family. Am I right?
I mean, okay, but
Am I right?
okay, sure, maybe, but then you would say that Littlefinger's from Game of Thrones, Littlefinger's fixation on Catelyn is also illogical and therefore stupid.
I mean,
as a writing point.
fixation is one thing, but it's like I
He
guess
kills
it's not.
Eddard for it.
I guess it's not.
He's
It's not properly explored enough. Like
I see, I see.
like it's like like some of the connective tissue between that in that plot line of Ostrid is not fully it's not drawn out in a way that's structurally sound. But given that he is only making an appearance just to be bait, fair enough, I suppose.
Yeah, okay. Maybe the author could spend more time on this situation and explore a little bit, how they were friends since childhood and blah 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 blah. But I find it believable. I find that better men did worse things for stupider reasons in the real world.
I suppose so. Yeah, but anyway,
You didn't find it compelling. I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. What about you, Robert? What do you think about
Yeah,
Ostrich and
I mean,
his?
Yeah, I mean, I just go by what people say. I'm a man of limitless credulity, except with the film The Day After Tomorrow. When something-
That film doesn't deserve it. Okay, I see. Yeah, who was your favorite character, Robert, in the story? Except for Geralt of Rivia, okay? You can't be like,
are
oh,
you talking
yeah,
about
the main character.
you're talking about just this story, am I right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Robert doesn't know any other, right?
Fair enough.
So, but you
No,
also
I suppose the king made quite a good impression on me because
Foltest.
he wasn't as stupid as I expected him to be. There was quite a bit more to him than I thought there was going to be.
I like Foltest as well. He's very cool. What about you, actually? Only this story, okay? You can't pick your favorite Bloody Baron.
But I told you already.
Ah, yeah,
Velerad.
Valdemir. Velerad. sorry.
Velerad, not Voldemir.
What am I
Who's
talking about?
Voldemir?
Yeah,
Anyway?
Velerad.
Who's Voldemir?
I don't know. I made up this name in my head. I guess.
What's the guy's name?
Oh, I think I'm thinking Vesemir.
Vizima.
That's what
Yeah,
I'm thinking.
Exactly.
think
I like Vizimir, but he's not in this.
Yeah, he's
story.
not in the story.
Yeah, I love the grandfather. Yeah, the grandfather figure.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So, what was I gonna say? Yeah, for me, it has to be. I have to agree with Robert. Foltest is my favorite character in this entire tale, because he is so. His appearances. He has two appearances, and he makes an impression in one, and then he completely shatters it in the next. And the fact that the author was able to do that with two short appearances in a short story, it's really good. It's really great. Well done, Mr. Sapkowski. It's really well done. That is something you can't take away from him. Characterization of individuals between one another. So it's really good. Yeah, man.
Well, I kind of beg to differ on that, to be honest. There's some interactions that I found really odd, but that's in other stories. Within this particular tale, though, I loved all the character interactions.
We will. I think we have to at this point review one more story so we can have further debates on how well he's written X, Y, or Z. But to focus on this tale for just one more time, the striga, the monster, it is not described that much, but I found the exact ways that it is described rather vivid.
It's actually given quite a detailed description, though. It just didn't happen in one.
Yes, I know it's sparse, but that's what I mean, right? Like, so
It's-
usually what an author does is like they don't talk about the creature at all. They don't talk about the creature at all, and then it's described in all its glory when it's finally seen, right? But here it's sort of like breadcrumbs spread across, and yes, you can get a very good picture of how it looks like when you collect them all. and for me that becomes rather vivid. That's what I'm trying to say. Actually, perhaps I've
Okay.
worded it incorrectly.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm.
Did you have the same feeling?
Uh, who? Robert or me?
Both of you. I don't know. I'm
Okay.
talking to two
Yeah,
guys here.
I didn't notice so much the breadcrumb aspect of it, but
No.
yeah, I thought it was a very effective monster. Reminded me of something, but well, in a way she's a bit like a troll.
Yeah,
What
for sure.
sort of a troll?
So because you and I, Nikki, we both have the benefit of knowing other stories about The Witcher. I would say this is actually very in keeping with the Witcher business, because part of Geralt's shtick is he goes around, he finds a monster, right? Some people have a monster problem. He finds out what the monster is, because the villagers sometimes don't give him the right answers, as we saw in the Red Baron, right? They don't give the full account. So Geralt will slowly piece the case together, and then you first have a very vague outline of certain characteristics of the monster through his investigations, like when he was looking at the dead body, the bites on the guy, one of the surviving witnesses, and then he gets an idea of what kind of claws the thing has. And then actually when he actually sees the so he slowly builds up a picture of the monster, and then finally in the actual fight we get to see whether his investigation is close or not. And I think that is a pretty laid out format for The Witcher itself. It's like the gimmick, if I can put it
However,
that way.
a lot of the tales don't actually spend that much on monster hunting. The Witcher is famous for being like, I'm the monster hunter, but anyway, I'm at this ball. You know, some stuff is going down,
That
or
I
like, oh
mean,
yeah, or I'm
that's fair enough, but there are like it almost all the mysteries that mysteries, I use the word loosely, like all the problems that Geralt solves tend to happen in that fashion where he pieces things together.
to me, um, I hope that we will do a story once with this character in it. There's a bunch of recurrent characters in The Witcher besides Geralt, and one of them is Dandelion.
Oh,
He's a bard of sorts, and
yeah.
every time Dandelion is paired with Witcher, it is high stakes comedy. It's always fantastic. Robert, I think you would enjoy it a lot. Reading reading that character. He's got this zesty energy that you just can't get anywhere else. Well, while not being annoying, which is very hard.
Hmm.
I don't know about that, but
Well, if you find him annoying, that's that. But I
no,
don't.
I
Find him
don't
annoying.
find him annoying, but I would be very annoyed if he was an actual friend. Gotta pull him out
Oh
of
yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
gotta
yeah,
go
yeah.
pull him
No,
out of
no
the fire all the
contest
time.
on that one. Yeah, no, for sure, for sure, for sure. But I'm just saying, sometimes reading an obnoxious character gets you annoyed as a viewer, as a reader. He doesn't have that effect upon me. He's definitely annoying in the universe for sure. I would you know strangle him
I
probably.
mean, props to Geralt for keeping him around, to be honest.
Geralt loves it for some reason. I mean, we'll get there. We'll get there. All right. Um.
Well, we're coming up
Yeah.
to an hour, so any last words, Robert, Nikki?
Almost every single podcast has you saying, "Well, we're coming up to an hour." It's like your catchphrase.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. My final thoughts before my final thoughts. Now I'm checking. My final thoughts are: this is a great tale. It's a great introduction to The Witcher. If you can look past some of the inconsistencies, that means that this this type of fiction, Sapkowski's work will work for you. As such, I think I'm gonna give it a very generous 8 out of 10.
Right.
What about you, Robert?
Yeah, I think I'll probably. I mean, it may seem like I'm being quite mean here, but I think I'll probably give it a 7, which is reasonably good for me with this kind of story in a rather dismal universe. I'm not really into dismal universes. That's the trouble.
Oh no, I mean I get it, Robert. You didn't submit the story, so of course you're gonna give it a lower score.
Yeah, but 7 is all right. It's not bad.
No, I know. I'm just jabbing at you. You do give yourself 10 out of 10 a lot, though.
No, well, sometimes
yeah.
stories are 10 out of 10 because they are
Yeah.
they may not be the greatest story that ever was, but they exhaust their own possibilities, and so that you couldn't think of any way they could be better than what they are, given what they're supposed to be. But I'm not so sure about this one.
You think it could have been improved? Yeah, I mean we spoke about it at length, right?
Yeah.
At the ways we could change it. All right. Actually, are you prepared to abstain from a score as per tradition?
No, I'll give it 6.5.
Ah, okay. So we went like gradual downwards.
So if I'm being very objective and honest with myself, if I've never played the Witcher games, I would have enjoyed the story, but I wouldn't have looked for a second one. Let's put it that way. Yeah. But because I love the game so much, I continued reading the rest of the book that I think it's called The Last Wish. I think.
Yeah, The Last Wish. That's right.
The Last Wish. I read through the whole book just because I love the Witcher games so much. But if I have to be very honest with myself, I would have had fun reading The Witcher, but it wouldn't have drawn me into the universe. Yeah.
Fair enough. Did you continue on reading more books after The Last Wish, or did you stop there?
I stopped there. So it tells you how much I like the books.
Man, the later ones are way better than this one.
So I'll be fair.
The Last Wish is the worst.
I will be fair and say that you reminded me that what I'm reading is after all a translation. It could just be that the translation is bad. Yeah.
I wish I could read it in the original Polish, but I unfortunately do not know the language.
Yeah.
I will say that the translation into Russian is better than this.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I guess we have come to the end of this particular podcast, which I thoroughly enjoyed. By the way, it's I really do like the Witcher games, and it was fun talking to you two about the story. So, with that, I bid our audience goodbye. And if you like the podcast, please like and subscribe.
Thank you for joining us.